What you just saw is kind of my worst nightmare, though still in a quite nice version. More specifically, the day the #1 video on Tournesol is a racist, pedophile or conspiracy video, the whole project could be discredited. And in the spirit of transparency, I'll acknowledge that this has actually already happened a few months ago when our learning algorithm was still buggy. Well, the problematic video was not like #1, but it still made me sweat. Crucially, the security of Tournesol and of recommendations made by Tournesol is a central concern of the project. It is absolutely critical that the scores calculated by Tournesol are perfectly safe and do not lead to dangerous recommendations. And unfortunately, guaranteeing the safety of the scores is an extremely difficult task, given that we also want them to be determined by the judgments of our contributors whom we do not know personally. In fact, even if we knew them personally, we could never rule out the possibility that their accounts could be hacked and exploited by extremely malicious entities. In the parlance of distributed computing, such maximally malicious entities are called Byzantines, after Turing Award winner Leslie Lamport wanted to illustrate the difficulty of designing solutions in the presence of Byzantines via a fable that is now called the Byzantine Generals problem. The problem is that on the internet, Byzantines are the norm. Remember what we said in the very first episode of this series. On Facebook, despite all the checks and despite a huge team of engineers dedicated to identifying fake accounts, there are most certainly many more fake accounts than accounts associated with a genuine human user. In 2019 alone, Facebook removed 6 billion fake accounts from its platform. Massive fake account attacks are also certainly found on scoring websites such as Amazon or TripAdvisor. This should not be surprising given the huge economic incentives of companies and restaurant owners to boost their scores and the ease with which it is possible to create fake accounts on these platforms. More generally, any collaborative and influential web platform should expect all sorts of malicious entities to seek out and exploit the platform's vulnerabilities. In particular, if it is possible for them to create fake accounts to manipulate Tournesol's scores, for example to promote a climate denialist video, then they should be expected to succeed, especially once Tournesol becomes well-known and influential.
The beauty of our decentralized internet is that no one controls it. But if 51% were controlled by one entity, like say Lori and Yao, they could rewrite the rules for everyone.
They can delete all of our users, all of our developer apps, crash our coin. This would be the end of Pied Piper.
There's a particular expression for when the Byzantines take complete control over a collaborative project. It is called the 51% attacks, and it was illustrated here in the case of the fictional decentralized internet designed by the heroes of the Silicon Valley TV show, which is called Pied Piper. Initially protected by a permission system, Pied Piper's security is suddenly breached, and the malicious entity then seeks to take control of it to crash the entire Pied Piper network. And to do this, in the series, the malicious entity actually only needs to connect more machines to the network than there were initially. Such an attack is called a 51% attack, and it is of course not at all specific to the digital world. In a democracy too, if an ideology or misinformation manages to win over 51% of the citizens, then it can in principle control the politics of the country. Even though in practice all sorts of checks and balances usually prevent total control of the country's government bodies, such as health authorities that do not depend directly on the democratic will. But this 51% attack is not restricted to democracy either. For example, in the series Suit, the main characters also seek to maintain control of the company by ensuring that no rival succeeds in winning the hearts of 51% of the board of directors, which has the ultimate power over the company. That being said, it is especially in the digital world, and in particular in the cryptocurrency world, that the risk of a 51% attack has become an obsession. After all, if an entity manages to carry out a 51% attack on the Bitcoin, then the 18 million Bitcoins in circulation that are worth $40,000 each, thus representing $700 billion in total, this would all be suddenly worth essentially nothing, as the attacker could essentially delete the transactions that don't suit them, thereby discrediting the entire security of Bitcoin. $700 billion could disappear overnight if a 51% attack succeeds. This is why many billionaires are taking the risk of a 51% attack very seriously. Very quickly, computer scientists realized that to protect themselves against a 51% attack, it is necessary to make it difficult to participate in the collaborative project. Otherwise, anyone could create a large number of fake accounts to own 51% of the accounts of the system and to take control over the system. Such a massive creation of fake accounts is called a Sybil attack. The solution Bitcoin has found to make such participation difficult is to reuse a solution that was used to prevent mass spamming. This solution is called the proof of work. Proof of work is essentially a difficult problem that participants are asked to solve in order to participate. In the case of emails, the problem is not so difficult, though it still takes modern machines a few seconds to solve it. In the case of Bitcoin, however, the problem is very difficult since it takes the huge armada of today's machines 10 minutes to actually solve it. It is this proof of work that allows Bitcoin to have become the most reliable and resilient computer system ever created. Unlike Google, for instance, in the last 10 years, Bitcoin has never experienced a single crash. Unfortunately, proof of work also has many flaws. For starters, it is very polluting as it forces many machines to make huge calculations just to participate in the Bitcoin protocol and to help secure it. And this pollution is absolutely gigantic. It is estimated that Bitcoin consumes more energy than Argentina. On the other hand, the proof of work mainly allows those who have invested the most computing power to control the Bitcoin. And in the end, these are the people with the most money. And I'm not sure it's desirable in general for collaborative projects to be controlled or to be at least controllable by those who are able to spend a lot of money. In particular, I definitely don't want Tournesol to be controllable by some billionaire. Overall, to protect ourselves against the 51% attack, we absolutely need more ethical solutions. And the classic alternatives considered by cryptocurrencies, such as proof of stake, proof of burn, proof of space, or proof of bandwidth, all seem far from satisfactory in this regard. The ideal sought by Tournesol is the so-called proof of personhood. Ideally, we should be able to prove that every validated account on Tournesol is controlled by a human user, and that this human user does not control any other account on Tournesol. Basically, this is the same condition as for citizens voting in a democracy. Note that this second condition excludes CAPTCHA-based solutions, which consist in verifying only that the user is human. However, such systems used by Facebook in particular can be widely attacked by click farms where a large number of human employees are paid to open new accounts on a given platform. Unfortunately, proof of personhood is still a big challenge in modern research. While some countries are designing such digital identity systems or plan to do so, there is currently no easy-to-use solution. And even if such a system existed, it would be essential to ensure that they are sufficiently secured to be used by Tournesol. One of the worst things that could happen would be that all the identity in a country like India are stolen by a Byzantine, who could then use them to manipulate the Tournesol scores at ease. For all these reasons, the main solution implemented today on Tournesol is the validation of emails associated with trusted email domains like @epfl.ch or @who.int. In particular, to protect Tournesol from the 51% attack, we judge the probability that a Byzantine could create a large number of fake accounts attached to this domain name. That's why domain names like @gmail.com are not considered trustworthy. This is also why domain names like @scienceforall.org are not considered trustworthy either. Not only could the owner of the domain name create a lot of emails with this domain name, but especially if they are not a computer security expert, they could also be hacked by a Byzantine who would create a lot of emails with this domain name. Now, of course, this certification method is also very restrictive, and I apologize to all of you who want to participate but do not have emails from trusted email domains. Having said this, on Tournesol, we are now having a vouching mechanism for account validation. All accounts can vouch for the trustworthiness of other accounts, so if your spouse or your friend is on Tournesol, then you can go on their Tournesol page and tell Tournesol that you certify the fact that the user of the account is a human who only has one active account on Tournesol. A user who has enough validated vouchers will then be validated in turn. Tournesol is also considering a landline validation system, but the development of this solution may take some time. Finally, we are of course interested in any potential other idea to validate more accounts, but I cannot insist enough on the fact that any solution must remain reliable and robust to Byzantine attacks, if only for the sake of my sleep. So, I've talked about the 51% attack so far. However, on Tournesol, the vulnerability does not correspond to a 51% attack. To understand this, we need to go a bit more in details in the algorithm used to compute the Tournesol scores. In general, machine learning uses algorithms that are very vulnerable to the presence of a single Byzantine data source. This is because the most commonly used algorithms rely on averaging, especially when estimating the gradient, if you know what I'm talking about. The last few years, there has been a lot of research into making learning algorithms resilient to Byzantine data, research in which I myself have been involved. On Tournesol, we relied on this research to make our algorithms resilient. In fact, we even proved in a paper that we are currently submitting and whose archived version will be available shortly, that a number f of Byzantine accounts can affect the global scores by at most f divided by 2 points. But now, on Tournesol, Byzantine accounts could choose to rate videos that are rated by nobody else. So, the security of Tournesol, especially at the moment, does not actually depend on the fraction of Byzantines, rather, today it depends on the number of Byzantine accounts on the platform. And this is not helping me sleep at night. To better protect us against Byzantine attacks, other measures will have to be taken, such as reducing the maximum influence of each account on Tournesol scores, identifying potential vulnerabilities, detecting abnormal behavior, generalizing an account score to videos that have not been rated, correcting representation bias in the set of voters, and taking into account contributors' expertise, among many other research directions. So much to do. Clearly, Tournesol is a huge endeavor, but I hope I have also convinced you that it is, above all, a fabulous endeavor in progress that you can help by contributing.